This is WEFT Champaign, 90.1 FM, community radio for East Central Illinois, streaming live at www.weft.org. The views and opinions expressed here are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent those of WFT, its board of directors, associates, its station manager, or Prairie Air Incorporated. The following program is pre-recorded and consists of two parts. The first part was originally aired in 2011. The second part was recorded on April 3rd, 2016. Welcome to Weekend Heartbeat. I'm Sean David, and this is a new lamp.
New lamp for old. New lamp for old. Remember how Aladdin headed out to get oil for his mother's old dented, tarnished lamp? And in the market he met a magician calling out these words. This strange man was offering to give him a brand new shiny lamp for his old one. That's what I want to offer you, if you'll have it. A new lamp of spiritual guidance. But maybe you already have such a lamp, which still burns brightly. Great. You are still welcome to join us simply to learn who we are. But maybe your lamp of divine guidance has gotten dented and tarnished like Aladdin's. Or perhaps you have no such lamp at all. To you, I offer a new lamp. Hi, my name is Marilyn. Welcome to A New Lamp, a program designed to make you acquainted with the Baha'i religious faith. I hope you will choose to spend the next few minutes with me. Thanks.
Whither can a lover go but to the land of his beloved? And what seeker findeth rest away from his heart's desire? To the true lover, reunion is life. To the true lover, separation is death. His breast is void of patience, and his heart hath no peace. His breast is void of patience, and his heart hath no peace. A myriad lives he would forsake to hasten. A myriad lives he would forsake to hasten to the abode of his beloved.
At the time and place Baha'u'llah lived, his laws regarding marriage and divorce were quite radical. At that time, wealthy men had harems and children by the dozens. Women's rights were negligible, and a man could easily divorce her. Can you imagine the household struggles with jealousy among the women and their children? We saw such problems among Old Testament patriarchs. Can you imagine a man being told he can have but one wife? Well, here it is, monogamy. Because there is no way any man can keep harmony and fairness any other way. Marriage is encouraged, but not obligatory. There are no prohibitions against marriage between the races or with non-Baha'is. The age of maturity for Baha'is is 15 years, and marriage may be contracted any time after that age has been reached. Marriage is not arranged, but determined by the affection between the individuals themselves on condition that it is approved by both sets of parents. This law applies no matter the age of the bride and groom. The purpose of this law is to prevent rancor and enmity and to preserve unity. The main purpose of marriage is to develop a family, and couples are encouraged to have children. Once the decision to wed has been made, the wedding must take place within 95 days. The marriage ceremony is simple. As we have no clergy, the recitation by both parties is said to this effect: "We will all, verily, abide by the will of God." The couple may choose to add to the ceremony appropriate readings and music. These marriages are legal, this matter having been tended years ago. The laws of Baha'u'llah place much emphasis on the consideration of the husband toward his wife. For example, he is not to leave her without telling her how long he will be gone. If he abandons her, she may remarry in 9 months. Also such things as financial matters, equitable legalities, and general respect and thoughtfulness. Baha'u'llah has said, "Truly the Lord loveth union and harmony, and abhorreth separation and divorce. Live ye one with another, O people, in radiance and joy. Compose your differences, O my servants." So divorce is strongly discouraged. But if things come to pass that the parties become estranged and want to divorce, they must wait separately 1 year of patience before this can take place. Neither husband or wife may take another mate during this time. Perhaps reconciliation will take place. Now on to the matters of funerals. The body, no matter what its condition, is to be treated with respect. It has been the temple for the soul during its earthly life. Burial in a good casket is prescribed. Cremation is not allowed. The body is not to be embalmed, but washed and shrouded in silk or fine cotton. A burial ring is placed on the finger, which says in effect, "I came forth from God, and unto him I return." Burial should take place within 24 hours if possible, and the body entombed within 1 hour's travel time from the place of death. The prayer for the dead is said just prior to interment. Death is not to be feared. As our life in the womb prepared us for life on this earth, so has our sojourn here prepared us for a beautiful unknown, the all-glorious Appa kingdom. O Son of the Supreme, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? I made the light to shed on thee its splendor. Why dost thou veil thyself therefrom? Baha'u'llah. Thanks so much for being with me this morning. I hope you have found a blessing during these few minutes. If you want to learn more about the Baha'i religion, you can go online to www.bahai.us. To contact me, my email address is anewlamp@yahoo.com. Thanks, and have a great day. Welcome to New Lamp. Our guest today is Michelle Cheek, known to her friends and family as Mickey. Hi, Mickey.
Hi, Marilyn. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Mickey.
Mickey is a longtime member of the Baha'i community in Champaign, having served many years on the local spiritual assembly. We're delighted that you're able to be with us today, Mickey, after having just returned from the 9-day pilgrimage to the Baha'i World Center in Haifa, Israel. We know our listeners will enjoy hearing about the Baha'i pilgrimage. But first, let's let them know something about who is Mickey Cheek. Would you like to fill us in a little bit about your personal history?
Well, I was born in Texas, but not all big things are from Texas. I'm a very small person, but that must be the Illinois influence. I moved here when I was 6. And that was in 1955, so I've been here for 60 years. And I went to high school at Champaign Central High School, and I went to the University of Illinois and to Parkland. And I have a bachelor's degree in leisure studies with an emphasis on nature education. And so most of my professional career was spent in environmental education. And I love to study nature. I love sciences of all sorts. I studied and took a program at Parkland and graduated in medical assisting. And I can give you shots.
What's that?
I cannot prescribe medicine or do any of that sort of thing, or do any surgeries, but I know a lot about health. And I have been married for 42 years, almost in June, to the same man, my husband Timothy, and a wonderful man. And we have we have 2 children, a son, Daniel, who is married and lives in Urbana, and he's a computer engineer. And my daughter, Bonnie, is a massage therapist who lives in Mahomet, and she has 2 children and expecting her 3rd. And I'm very hurriedly trying to make a blanket for number 3. I don't have a whole lot else to say except that we will move in a year or 2 to Indiana. We bought a 40-acre plot of woodland, and we'll build a house there. And hopefully I'll be able to write children's stories because I am enrolled in the Institute of Children's Literature.
Really?
And just started this week. And So I expect to be learning all about that and have a lot of ideas for children's stories that will be using the virtues.
Very good.
That's basically it.
Oh, that's exciting. I didn't know you were doing that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And we have somebody else in the community who is doing the artistic work on children's books. So that's interesting, too.
Well, we may collaborate.
Who knows?
I also paint and draw, but I am so blown away by Cora's work that I will have to collaborate with her, if not have her do the illustrations.
And then we're talking about Cora Hayes, who was here earlier on a previous program. I don't know, did Cora talk about her artwork while she was here? We mainly talked about
oh, gosh, it's been several months ago, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't remember, but since that time she had the showing out at
the Nature Center at right by the swimming pool in Urbana.
Yeah.
Anita Purvis, Nature Center.
Yes, there you go.
Yep.
I was working there as a volunteer before they even had the center and helped guide school groups through there.
Oh, really?
I've also worked in Indianapolis at the Eagle Creek Park as an interpretive naturalist. I worked in Forest Glen Preserve as a naturalist assistant. I also worked at, off and on, as a trail guide and horticultural educator at Champaign County Forest Preserve District. But those jobs, you don't make very much money.
No, yeah. Although I gotta say, that's funny. I knew that one of my strongest memories of you in my childhood, Mickey, is you wearing that uniform, that brown uniform, the brown wilderness uniform. And I guess I never thought about why you were wearing it. But we'd go out and we'd see you on the job. I guess I never realized that you were on the job. I thought that you were just out there volunteering extra time. I didn't realize that you were a professional. So that's pretty.
Yes.
That's awesome to know now. I never knew that.
Well, this is something I have found interesting with our interviews. I think I know the person that we're going to interview, and I learned so much that I didn't know about them. And I'm certainly learning a lot about you that I didn't know.
Well, botany and ornithology are two of my favorite topics. And I've studied in depth the uses of botanical plants, you know, both medicinal and food. And this is an interest that I inherited from my mother and grandmother. And I tend to know God through nature. And that was where I first became enlightened that there was a God and that I should pay attention.
Well, so each of us has unique histories about how we became Baha'is. And very few of us, like Sean, were actually born into the faith. How did you become a Baha'i, Mickey?
Well, I was raised a Methodist. I was fortunate. I went to the Champaign United Methodist Church on University Street in Champaign. And I was fortunate to have parents and a minister who approached biblical scriptures from a very open standpoint, not a fundamentalist standpoint, which has always made sense to me. And as I grew older, I went through a period of doubt.
Sure.
And thought maybe there wasn't a God, but nature said different. Nature said there was a God, and that he was very much involved in everything around us. And so I went back to church, and I started studying the Bible for myself, and found that there were scriptures. I couldn't quote you them now because that was way too long ago. But there were scriptures that indicated when Christ would come back.
Yes.
He promised he would come back. And I looked around me and thought, my goodness, those things have been in existence for a long time now. Surely he's already come. And I went every day to the church and prayed for a couple of hours before I went to work. And then I prayed that if he had come, that God would show me who it was and where he was and how I could know him. And I went to work, and one day a Baha'i came to the laundromat where I was working. And I was newly married. My mother was dying of cancer. And so I had a lot of questions. And as all newlyweds do, I had difficulties in my marriage, you know. And we were adjusting. And I was dealing with the death of the impending death of my most beloved mother. And this woman seemed to have all the answers to my questions.
Really?
She invited me to go to her house, which was just a couple doors down. Coincidence, you know. There are no coincidences. And she invited me to go to her house in the mornings before work, and we would have tea and cookies. And I would ask her a question and tell her what was bothering me, and she would reach for the Baha'i writings, and she would have exactly the answer that I needed. And this went on for about 9 months.
Oh, my.
And finally, after that 9-month period, my mother died. And it was like the rug being pulled out from under me, because she was so, so precious to me. And I could always depend on her to love me and to steer me right. And she was like the rug under my feet,
Yes.
the floor under my feet.
And you were going through a major transition, 2 major transitions at once.
Yes. I think it's significant that this was a 9-month period that I was studying the faith. I was basically pregnant with the faith. And
An interesting way to put it.
yeah. And one day I was praying some of the Baha'i prayers for the departed that my friend Margaret Baker had given me. And I had a vision of my mother being in the room with me and saying to me, "Mickey, this is the truth. This is the truth. This is the truth." And so I went to my friend Margaret and I said to her, "Margaret, this is what happened to me." And she read from the scriptures, and I think it was Baha'i World Faith. I don't remember exactly what the quotation was, but I just knew at that moment that I was a Baha'i. And I said, "Margaret, I'm a Baha'i." And I thought she was going to wear a hole in the rug from dancing around. She was very happy to see that. And I've been a Baha'i ever since. That was 1974, March 15th, 1974. 9 years later, my daughter was born.
On March 15th.
On March 15th.
On March 15th.
And I started the fast that month, that very day, as a brand new Baha'i. So March 15th has a lot of import for me.
So when we think of the Ides of March, it's not all bad.
No, it's not. My daughter looks and acts like my mother used to.
Really?
She has her mannerisms, and she never knew my mother. She's kind and compassionate and practical and spiritual. And she's a massage therapist, and so she's very empathetic. And that's basically my story.
It's a wonderful story. You know, it's interesting you said you asked to find Jesus on his return. I did a similar thing. I wish I had done it earlier instead of waiting until I was 70 years old. But I remember one time standing in my kitchen thinking, everything is right it has to be the time. And I mean, the people I was around, nobody was talking about it, thinking about it. And I said, please don't let him come and let me miss him.
Yeah.
And it was very soon thereafter then that I learned about the faith. But because there was this sudden, it has to be. And he said, it would be very possible to miss him. And I don't want to miss him.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Boy, I didn't want to be left behind.
Yeah.
And he said that he would come as a thief in the night, in the clouds. I didn't take those literally. I thought it meant that we wouldn't know him because he would come quietly, like a thief in the night, and that there would be veils before our eyes that would keep us from recognizing him.
Right.
So recognizing him was something that many people wouldn't be able to see because it would be they would be too focused on literal translations of the scriptures or too focused on their worldly concerns.
Right.
And the death of my mother showed me that there is something beyond this life, and that she was just beyond the veil, and that we have a spirit and a spiritual life, and it's being constantly cared for by God and the Holy Spirit and the manifestation of God, Jesus or Baha'u'llah or Allah or whatever you want to call him.
Yes.
It's the same.
Yes. So, Mickey, when I called you the other day to see if you'd be on our program with us, you were sorting through photographs that you've just recently taken on your Baha'i pilgrimage. So maybe this is something you can share with us. And Sean, going on pilgrimage is something you ought to do while you're still young and hale and hearty.
Oh, yeah.
It's rough up and down hills, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's nothing but up and down hills. Up, 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 up.
Well, that's why they call it Mount
dear.
Carmel.
Yeah.
Mountain.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of fill us in about Baha'i pilgrimage, kind of like, why do we go on pilgrimage? Why do we go where we go? And what was your experience?
Well, in the first place, Baha'u'llah says that he commands us to go. And we're supposed to do it as an assistance to ourselves. Prior to going on pilgrimage, I was going through a period of spiritual upheaval and needed that shot in the arm very badly. I also suddenly had the money. Never
That's
had the money
interesting.
before. And another quinkadink? Probably not. Probably not. And so I asked my best friend Lethea Draves from Decatur if she would go with me because I didn't want to go by myself, and my husband felt he couldn't go. And I was afraid to go by myself.
Yeah.
I figured I could probably do it, but it would be very difficult. And after all, I was 64 years old at that point in time, and I thought I need someone who knows the ropes. So Lethea had been there 6 times before.
Really?
She had taken both granddaughters there on their 15th birthdays. And she'd been there on pilgrimage once, and she went there when her daughter was working in Haifa at the World Center, and for her daughter's wedding and for her first grandchild's birth.
Oh, my.
So she'd been 6 times, actually 5 times at that point in time. So she knew the ropes. And she helped make all of our arrangements, and I couldn't have asked for a better travel agent. And so we went together. We had known each other for well over 30 years. We were very dear friends and still are. And she's my Baha'i sister. At times I would think, well, Lethea still loves me, and it would restore me. And so we went, and because it was a command of God, a command of Baha'u'llah to do this, I felt compelled to go, in spite of any fears that I might have.
Yes.
And it was difficult, some of it. But it seemed like things just dropped in place. We had no difficulties getting through customs. We had no difficulties making connections with planes. Doors just opened right and left. And it was only difficult because of my lack of physical preparation.
I know that feeling.
I'm slightly overweight, and I have arthritis in my knees and back. And at first, getting up and down that mountain just about killed me.
Yes.
You know, and but over the week and a half, 2 weeks that we were there, we were also there during the Nowruz celebration.
Yes, I want to hear about that.
So we actually had 10 days instead of only 9.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I wanted to go at that time because it was during the March 15th period. And it was a special time to me. And I wanted to be there for my daughter's birthday and for my Baha'i birthday. And we got to celebrate the Nowruz with everybody there. There were 1,000 of us marching down the mountain after our service with the Universal House of Justice at the seat of the Universal House of Justice. And there were like 700 staff members and 150 pilgrims.
Wow.
And all of us marched down the mountain, and then some 3 to 5 day pilgrims were there. And so there were 1,000 of us walking back down the mountain to the Shrine of the Bab. And we went in turns, taking turns. First the Universal House of Justice did, and then the rest of us filed in and said prayers. And that was the most special time to be amongst 1,000 Baha'is and be able to say to everyone I met, Allahu Akbar,
Yes.
Happy Nowruz. And the answer would come back, Allahu Akbar, Happy Nowruz. And as we gathered there outside the Pilgrim House, there were people from all walks of life, all countries. There were people from Canada and Great Britain and America and Germany and France and Belgium and Malaysia and China and Japan and on and on and on, and India
Yes.
and Persia. You know, all these people, and many people in their native costumes.
Oh, don't you love that?
I did, and I took pictures of it, lots of them. And for some odd reason, the Malaysian friends adopted me.
Oh, really?
I
well,
don't
you're
know
a cute
why.
little thing. Oh, that's nice.
And they kept wanting to feed me. I don't know why they wanted to feed me, but they did. And I had to explain to them, well, it's delicious, but it's a little too spicy. And then they would laugh. And I said, you see this very fair skin? It's very thin. You can see the blood vessels underneath. And my mouth is the same way. And they laughed. And we had such a wonderful time together. And you would see dark-skinned people, short, dark-skinned people, and tall, thin, white-skinned people, and people in saris, and people in kilts, and people in ordinary American Western attire, you know.
Yes.
But everybody was dressed up in their best, and it was so beautiful to see.
Yeah.
And there was such love on that mountain that night.
There's nothing like being in a large group of Baha'is. I never realized how that felt until going up to Green Lake, you know, and it's like, wow. It's just a magnificent feel.
Yeah, well, and there then you also have the knowledge that you're walking on ground that has been walked on by the holy prophets of the past.
You remember the old hymn, I walked today where Jesus walked? Mm-hmm. I've thought about that a lot of times and just replaced the words with Baha'u'llah, but however, it's still that same area that Jesus walked.
It is. And as we traveled from Haifa to Akka and then on to Baji, we were traveling through the Valley of Galilee.
Yes.
And we were looking at the Galilee hills and knowing that Nazareth was just over the hill.
Just over
from
the
there.
hills,
We weren't
right.
allowed to go there because of the political unrest.
Right.
But just to be passing through with that knowledge that I was someplace very, very holy and very special, just filled my heart with confirmation, and was a lifelong desire from a child on.
Yes. Isn't that wonderful? You know, I had actually never had the desire to go to the Holy Land until I became Baha'i, which many Christian people do. But for some reason, until I became Baha'i, I was not interested in going. I guess because I knew that so many things had been built, and you know that 2,000 years takes its toll on things.
Yes, it does. It does. We wanted to go visit the Cave of Elijah, but one of the friends told us, "Oh, you'll be disappointed," for that very reason, and so we didn't.
My daughter did.
Did she? What did she say?
She found it very interesting. And there is, of course, the man-made shrine. But nonetheless, you're going down into it. She found it interesting how the men and women were kept separated in going down. And she found it an interesting experience, actually just getting down there, because you ride in the cable car kind of thing to get down there up from the mountain. So she found it interesting.
Somebody said there was an upper cave and a lower cave, and that the upper cave was better, but we didn't really have time, actually.
Right.
What with all the things we had to do, because you still have day-to-day things to take care of, like grocery shopping and laundry and getting enough rest.
I was going to say, getting enough rest now, Ben.
Yeah. Fortunately, the Universal House of Justice took care of us, very good care of us. They paid for our phone calls home.
Oh, really?
And they were unlimited.
Oh.
And every night after a program at the ITC building, they would call Cheroots and buses for us to take us back up the mountain. And there's a wonderful large kitchen and dining room at the Pilgrim House.
Yes.
Where you can put your food in the refrigerator and have enough food for the week. And there's such camaraderie and joyousness as everybody gathers to prepare their food and sit down and eat together. And Lethea and I went very frugally. We lived on turkey lunch meat, lettuce, cucumbers, peppers, and peanut butter and bread, a lot. And maybe that was what made the Malaysian friends want to feed me, because they saw what we were eating. But I've never eaten such simple and delicious food in my life. And the hotel breakfasts were sumptuous.
Oh, Lance, yes, I remember that well.
Oh, geez. It was so nice not to have to fix breakfast and to go down there and gather with all the pilgrims and visit. And since then, I've had multiple chances to teach as a result of having been on pilgrimage. And one of the things that my son-in-law said was, "Aren't you afraid? Aren't you afraid to go there, to that part of the world?" And I said, "No."
Nobody feels afraid on pilgrimage.
Not only is the security very high, in Haifa and on the Holy Mountain. But if I were to die going on pilgrimage,
Where else better?
where else better? That's right. A whole lot better doing that than in the middle of a mistake of some sort.
Right, getting hit by a bus over on Green Street.
or saying something rude or doing something rude,
Yes,
you know?
yes.
I mean,
I thought the same thing.
yeah. And I never felt insecure the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
The only time I was a little teeny weeny bit afraid was when we got on the second airplane and the captain said that there was some sort of a piece on one of the wings that had to be taken off, and you could hear all this hammering.
Oh,
And they didn't have time to repair it, so they were going to take it off. And I thought, it's supposed to be there, right? And so we just said some removers of difficulties, and and no problems.
did you go through London?
Yes, we did.
Did you have a chance to go to Shoghi Effendi's
Yes.
gravesite?
Yes.
Did you?
I wish that we had had more time. We allotted, we flew in on a Thursday, and on Friday all day we walked and walked. We walked 6.5 miles that day. We went to the Guardian's gravesite and met the caretaker, Sohail. I've forgotten his last name, but Sohail, and he'd been there for a month, and he invited us in for a talk and a visit in his office, and then he showed us a shortcut through the woods to get back to where we needed to go. And I noticed how beautiful the sections of the cemetery that were belonging to the Universal House of Justice. And the rest was very run down, and trees and weeds growing up amongst the headstones, and the headstones falling over and things like that. But they had begun to clear out all of that in these two sections. And of course, Shoghi Effendi's gravesite is very, very beautiful. It's very well kept up, and that spire topped by the golden eagle.
That has to be beautiful.
It is, and the sun was glinting on it, and the birds were singing, and there were wildflowers all around, and daffodils, and all kinds of little blue things growing up out of the ground, and I thought they were violets at first, but they weren't, and I didn't recognize them. But I was surprised to see all the plants that I actually recognized. And in the Holy Land, there are redbud trees,
Yes.
just like there are here. And
Really?
yeah, and snapdragons. And amongst these palm trees and other things that are eucalyptus trees and other things that are so unusual around here, there'd be these little hints of home here,
Yes.
you know, and just enough to make you feel comfortable
Right.
and to realize that it is one world and we all belong to it.
Well, many plants, like tulips, that we think of as ours, originally came from Persia.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And then they
Well,
went to Holland. And
I guess they went to Holland, and then they came along with us when we crossed the ocean or something.
Wow. Okay.
I think God is in the process of, as I study nature, and I study the movement of various different species of birds and animals and insects and plants and stuff. I think God is really slowly remaking the earth, and it'll be unrecognizable once 2 or 3 generations are gone by. And it's really amazing that he seems to me to be making it one world, and we don't like change, you know, because we're used to this one thing, but change is inevitable,
Oh, yes.
and we're not in charge.
Change is hard. Transitions are hard. Whether they're good changes or bad changes, transition is hard.
It is.
So right now things look pretty, kind of shabby. But yes, we can look ahead with real hope, real faith. The deserts bloom. Mount Carmel blooms. It is beautiful. And it was just a wilderness a matter of 100 years ago. So it's an amazing thing. Oh, this has been a great discussion, and we're so glad that you went on pilgrimage and have shared it with us. Maybe it'll light a fire under Sean to get going.
I hope so. I hope so. I'm hoping to go in another 10 years when my grandchildren are old enough to go. And Bonnie was saying, "You can't go. You can't go without me. I'm not ready to go yet." I said, "Well, we can go again."
Yes.
So
that would be wonderful. We like to end our program with some readings from the writings. But in the meantime, and we hope you'll join us for that. In the meantime, let's take a look at what events will be coming up at the Baha'i Center in Urbana over this next month.
Every Tuesday at 7 p.m., there's a weekly prayer meeting led by Joan Mills. Each Sunday morning at 11 a.m., there is a devotional program of prayers, readings, and an informal discussion on a wide possible variety of subjects. Every second Sunday of the month at 3 p.m., there will be a potluck supper, an uplifting, all-inclusive worship program with live music and singing, followed by an informational activity for spiritual and practical well-being. On the fourth Sunday of each month, the weekly devotional program will be followed by a potluck lunch at noon and game day, an afternoon of family-friendly fun and games for all ages. Also, on the first Friday of each month at 7:30 p.m., there is an event called the First Friday Fireside. The local Baha'i community invites all who are interested to attend these informal monthly talks, which will cover various aspects of the Baha'i faith, followed by a Q&A session. Additional information about Baha'i activities in the Champaign-Urbana area can be found on the local Baha'i website, cubaha'i.org. That's cu-bahai.org. Click Goings On to see the local calendar. The Baha'i Center is located at 807 East Green Street in Urbana, a few blocks east of Lincoln Square. It is a stop on the Red Bus Line, and it is wheelchair accessible.
Mickey, we are so glad that you came and shared with us about your adventure on pilgrimage. It's been really wonderful having you here. Toward the end of our program, we read some of the writings, and hope that you will join us for that.
I'd be happy to.
Also, Mickey, I happen to know that you do a beautiful job of chanting. Can you chant some of them for us?
Yes, I'd be delighted to.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey.
O Son of Man, upon the tree of effulgent glory, I have hung for thee the choicest fruits. Wherefore hast thou turned away and contented thyself with that which is less good? Return then unto that which is better for thee in the realm on high. Baha'u'llah.
If it be thy pleasure, make me to grow as a tender herb in the meadows of thy grace, that the gentle winds of thy will may stir me up and bend me into conformity with thy pleasure, in such wise that my movement and my stillness may be wholly directed by thee. Baha'u'llah.
Lay not on any soul a load which ye would not wish to be laid upon you, and desire not for any one the things ye would not desire for yourselves. Baha'u'llah.
Men who suffer not, attain no perfection. The plant most pruned by the gardeners is the one which, when the summer comes, will have the most beautiful blossoms and the most abundant fruit. Abdu'l-Baha.
Truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues. Without truthfulness, progress and success in all the worlds of God are impossible for any soul. When this holy attribute is established in man, all the divine qualities will also be acquired. Baha'u'llah.
Heed not your weaknesses and frailty. Fix your gaze upon the invincible power of the Lord your God, the Almighty. Arise in His name. Put your trust wholly in Him, and be assured of ultimate victory. The Bab.
The happiness and greatness, the rank and station, the pleasure and peace of an individual have never consisted in his personal wealth, but rather in his excellent character, his high resolve, the breadth of his learning, and his ability to solve difficult problems. Abdu'l-Baha.
The music used in the A New Lamp portion of today's program were We May Never Pass This Way Again with Dash Crofts and Paul Seaforth, and Benediction by Paul Seaforth. If you would like to learn more about the Baha'i community in the Champaign-Urbana area, or any of the activities we have mentioned today, you can visit our website at www.cu-bahai.org. If you would like to learn more about the Baha'i Faith, you may go to www.bahai.us. If you would like to contact the local Baha'i community in Champaign-Urbana, please visit our website at www.cu-bahai.org and click Contact. Thank you again for joining us today. I hope you'll join us again next month. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this week's Weekend Heartbeat on WEFT Champaign 90.1 FM, Community Radio, Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, streaming live at www.weft.org.